Welcome to today's video, where we will tell you 5 terrifying true camping stories that were anything but idyllic. For many, camping is a way to escape the hustle and bustle of everyday life and enjoy nature. But sometimes nature holds inexplicable and frightening secrets. The stories we are about to share are based on real events, and they might just make you think twice before sleeping under the open sky again. So, make yourself comfortable, but not too comfortable, because these stories will send shivers down your spine. Our first story takes place in a remote forest area in Canada. Sarah and her 3 friends, Mike, Jess, and Tom, decided to spend a weekend in the woods to escape city noise. They had planned everything carefully. Tents, supplies, flashlights, everything was set. The first night was peaceful, but the second night took a terrifying turn. Around midnight, Sarah suddenly heard faint voices. At first, she thought it was her friends talking, but when she looked out of the tent, they were all sitting silently around the fire. The voices grew louder. It sounded like multiple people whispering, but the words were incomprehensible. Now, Sarah's friends heard them too. They tried to find the source, but the further they walked into the forest, the quieter the voices became, until they stopped completely. The next morning, they decided to investigate. What they found sent chills down their spines. Around their tent were strange footprints in the mud, too large to be human. The prints led deep into the forest, but none of them had the courage to follow. Sarah and her friends packed up immediately and left. To this day, they have no idea what caused the voices. Sarah says she has never gone camping again. She feels as though something or someone was watching them that night, and that they may have barely escaped a greater danger. Our second story takes us to a remote marshland in England. Emma and her boyfriend Ben decided to camp near the marsh to experience its mystical atmosphere. They had heard that the area was known for unexplained phenomena, but they were skeptical. Until that night. Around midnight, they suddenly heard a soft singing from afar. It sounded like an ancient, unfamiliar melody. Curious, they followed the sound and found themselves at a clearing where a group of people in black robes were dancing around a fire. Emma and Ben hid behind a tree and watched the strange ritual. The people seemed to be in a trance, their movements mechanical and unnatural. Suddenly, one of the robed figures turned and stared directly at them. A cold shiver ran down Emma and Ben's spines. They ran back to their tent, but when they arrived, it was destroyed. The poles were bent, and the fabric was torn to shreds. Grabbing their things, they fled immediately. Later, they learned that witches had been executed in the marsh centuries ago. Emma is convinced that they witnessed an ancient ritual and that they barely escaped. Our third story takes place in the Rocky Mountains in the USA. Emily and her friends were experienced campers and decided to go on a multi-day hiking trip. On the second evening, they were sitting comfortably around the campfire when Emily suddenly noticed a large shadow at the edge of the fire's light. The shadow slowly moved toward them, but when they shone their flashlights in its direction, there was nothing there. Suddenly, the fire began to flicker and then went out completely. In the darkness, they heard a deep growl coming from where the shadow had been. Emily and her friends grabbed their things and ran as fast as they could back to the car. The next day, they returned with a park ranger to look for clues. What they found was disturbing. Large claw-like scratches on the trees and a strange, foul smell lingering in the air. The ranger said he had never seen anything like it before. Since then, Emily and her friends have never returned to that area. Emily says she felt like the shadow was following them and that they barely escaped. She is convinced that something unexplainable is living in those woods. Our fourth story takes us deep into the jungles of South America. A team of 4 adventurers, Alex, Maria, Carlos, and Sophia, embarked on an expedition to find a lost city, one they had only heard about in ancient legends. After days of trekking through the dense rainforest, they finally stumbled upon the ruins of the forgotten city. But they were not alone. As they explored the ruins, an eerie whisper echoed through the crumbling stone walls. At first, it was barely audible, but soon the voices grew louder, as if following them. Suddenly, Alex felt a cold hand grasp his shoulder. He turned swiftly, but no one was there. Fear crept into their minds as the realization set in. Something was watching them. Panic took hold. They decided to leave immediately. But as they retraced their steps, the jungle had transformed. The path they had taken was gone, swallowed by the dense vegetation. Hours passed as they wandered aimlessly, their fear mounting with each passing moment. Then, through the heavy foliage, they reached a clearing, and what they saw sent shivers down their spines. A group of silent figures stood before them, clad in tattered clothing, their eyes void of any light, completely black. The figures did not move, did not speak. They simply stared. A sense of dread filled the air. Without a second thought, the adventurers turned and ran, their hearts pounding as they crashed through the jungle. They ran until exhaustion overtook them. Finally, just as hope began to fade, they stumbled upon a familiar trail. Civilization was close. With their last bit of strength, they followed the path back to safety, leaving the lost city and its ghostly inhabitants behind. To this day, Alex and his friends remain convinced that they encountered the spirits of the lost city. And though they escaped with their lives, they will never forget the chilling whispers that haunted their journey. The Scottish Highlands are known for their breathtaking beauty, endless rolling hills, mist-covered mountains, and deep, mysterious forests. But hidden beneath this natural wonder lies an eerie silence, a sense of isolation that can turn the most peaceful landscape into something unsettling. Lisa and her boyfriend Daniel were experienced campers, having spent countless nights under the open sky. But nothing could have prepared them for what they would encounter on this particular trip. They had planned a simple weekend getaway, a chance to disconnect from their daily routine and immerse themselves in the raw beauty of nature. The spot they chose was deep within the highlands, far from any town or village. As the sun set, casting golden hues across the endless sea of grass and trees, they sat by their small campfire, enjoying the crisp night air. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying with it the distant hoots of owls and the rustling of unseen creatures moving through the underbrush. It was peaceful until, just past midnight, the tranquility was shattered. A voice, a child's voice. It was faint, barely audible over the wind, but unmistakable. Help me." Lisa froze, her marshmallow-laden stick hovering over the fire. Daniel set his drink down, his brows furrowing. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. Daniel nodded slowly. The voice had come from the woods, somewhere beyond the tree line that bordered their campsite. It was high-pitched, fragile, and filled with desperation. "Maybe it's a lost child," Lisa suggested, already standing. Daniel hesitated. They were miles from civilization. No houses, no roads, nothing but wilderness in every direction. What would a child be doing out here in the dead of night? But the voice came again. "Help me. Please." That was enough for Lisa. Grabbing a flashlight, she started toward the trees. Daniel had no choice but to follow. As they stepped into the forest, the thick canopy above swallowed the moonlight, leaving them in near darkness. Lisa's flashlight cut through the shadows, illuminating gnarled tree trunks and patches of moss-covered ground. "Where are you?" Lisa called out. Silence. Then, "Over here." The voice was further away now. Lisa and Daniel moved deeper into the woods, their breath visible in the cold night air. The trees seemed to press closer together, their twisted branches forming eerie shapes against the fog that had begun to creep along the forest floor. The deeper they went, the denser the fog became, curling around their legs like ghostly fingers. Daniel grabbed Lisa's hand. "We need to go. Now." They turned and ran, stumbling over roots and rocks as the fog thickened. The trees blurred together in the dim light, and for a horrifying moment, Lisa feared they were running in circles. Then, through the haze, they saw it. The faint glow of their campfire. Relief surged through them as they sprinted the last few steps. They reached the clearing, gasping for breath, and spun around to check behind them. Nothing, just silent, impenetrable fog. Shaking, they doused the fire, threw their gear into their backpacks, and left without looking back. The entire drive home, Lisa couldn't shake the feeling that they had escaped something they were never meant to encounter. Days later, curiosity got the better of her. She researched the area and found a chilling piece of local history. Years ago, a young boy had gone missing in those very woods. Despite extensive searches, his body was never found. Locals believed his spirit still roamed the forest, forever calling out for help. Lisa and Daniel never returned to the highlands. They never camped again. And sometimes, when Lisa closes her eyes, she swears she can still hear that voice, faint, distant, calling her name. Those were our 5 terrifying camping stories. Have you ever experienced something similar? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more true horror stories. Until next time, stay safe and maybe consider booking a hotel instead.